ready to go. He sent a notice out to everybody. Now, Ute. Hold on a second. All right, and check out to make sure we are online. We are live on Facebook. Lights, camera, action. All right, check out YouTube. Yeah, we are live on YouTube also. Okay, good to see everybody. And we are going to start, as we normally do in the beginning. So, let's chant. Hold on a second, gang. Get the guitar. Go ready. Do something a little different today. Samsadadavan alalila luka Janayakarunaga Natwam Kashakal Nakuravasha Excuse me. Mandera Street Chalanada Benam Mahaprabhoki Chita Manyan Mansora Sena Manchakam Basruda Kabayo Negro Kalanana Benam Chivigraha Danana Nichananda Shingaratan Mandira Majanado Yutashabatams Ganyona Tope Vandero Shri Charanana Benam Chaturira Sri Bhagavat Prasado Satana Triptan Haribhakti Sanghan Kaiva Triptim Vajatapti Toiva Vandero Sri Radhika Madhavayorumpara Madhuyale Yakuna Rupananam Pratikshana Santana Lolubasya Mandero Sri Charanana Vindam Nikudayona Yeri Siddhai Yayip Pekshaniya Tatrani Dakshana Tivalapasha Mandero Sri Charan Vindam Sakshana Vichena Sanasta Sastre Utastata Bhavyata Ivasami Kintu Prabhurya Priya Eva Tasha Mandero Sri Charanani Vindam Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasada Nagatika Tupi Hanero Sri Jana Krishna Prasaya Bhutanai Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Samanitina Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharinai Nivase Chaitanya Vade Vachachane Satarane Jaya Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Shri Krishna Caitanya Bodhananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Haribo, 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 Jayako, Haribo, Haribo, Haribo. Jai Om Vishnupad. Paramahansa Parvacharya calls the Teta Satashi Shiman is divine grace. Abhaya Chananada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Param se kaho Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Garadha Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopana Sayam Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavanam Ki Jai, Mathuranam Ki Jai, Jagannath Swami Ki Jai, Yamunamai Ki Jai, Shrimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bom. All glories the assembled devotees, all glories the assembled devotees, all glories the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale. Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamani Namaste Saraswati Devi. Gaura Bani Pracharane Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschacha Dejatarni. So, Om Gana Timiranda Shah Gananjana Shalakya Chakshurun Meditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorancia. So we're going to continue reading the Caitanya Caritamrta from the 7th chapter. We just got finished reading about the Brahmin Kurma, or Kurma Brahmin, who, when he got Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's association, he wanted to follow Lord Chaitanya and get out of his home, head for the hills, no more headaches, no more family entanglement. He was thinking like that. And actually, Lord Chaitanya said, don't ever talk like that, Prabhu. And the reason he said, don't ever talk like that, Prabhu, is because the main point is, what? Not to give something up because it's difficult or it's a struggle. Actually, that's called renunciation, as we mentioned yesterday, in the mode of passion. Just like when I first came here to North Carolina many years ago, 1982. We purchased some property here and did not have any resources at all. So we were camping out for the first 2 years. And it was cold, really cold for the winters. And the devotee said, it's too much austerity for me. And I said, you can all go if you like. And I'm staying. So I stayed, and one or two of the devotees left, whatever. And because I was thinking of Krishna's enjoyment, not of renouncing something because it was so difficult. Of course, we don't want to do something that it infringes on our health, obviously. You don't want to execute austerities that are going to hurt your body. But we didn't die. We didn't get sick. We were quite healthy at that particular point, still are. So that's one example how we thought of service, because our nature is servants. We are servants. Jivera Swarupa Hoy Nicha Krishna Das. Our business is not neither to renounce nor to exploit this material energy. Neither jnana nor karma. Jnana means like trying to renounce this world and enter into Brahman. Or karma, trying to enjoy getting more and more material goods or whatever, something like that. So that's not our business in Krishna consciousness. Our business is to give Krishna enjoyment. That's going to be really heavy for a lot of you to swallow. To give Krishna enjoyment. And the interesting thing is when you think of giving Krishna enjoyment and you act in such a capacity, ignoring your own enjoyment, guess what happens? Then you become happy. But when you try to satisfy yourself, it's like nectar in the beginning and then poison at the end. That's Bhagavad Gita. Don't blame me for these particular statements. Because you think, need this or want liberation. Liberation is poison. It's like going to hell if one doesn't have Krishna. And bhukti-mukti-siddhi.com, Sakalaya Shanta Krishna Bhakta Nishkam Ateva Shanta. That's a verse from the Caitanya Caritamrta. That if one wants gross things in this world, that means things you can touch, empirical things. Bhukti Mukti, if one wants liberation, or even one wants power, yogic power. Siddhikam Sakale Ashanta, one will be not peaceful, Ashanta. But if you're Krishna Bhakta Nishkam, if your desire is only to satisfy Krishna, then you're going to be happy. Peaceful, because you can't be peaceful, or you can't be happy unless you're peaceful. If your mind is always disturbed, how can you be happy? Try to remember that. And the only way to have an undisturbed mind is to be thinking in devotion to please Krishna. Savaipum sam paradana yato bhakti hoksaje. Ahaitake pratyata yatma supersedate. That's Bhagavatam says. That the only thing that will satisfy the self is Savaipum sam paradharma, the topmost dharma, yato bhakti, it hoksaje is bhakti. And that bhakti has to be unimpeded. Apratyata. And ahaitu, not have any material cause. Not you're getting anything for it. I've been serving Krishna all these years, and I get just an old body. So ahaitaki pratyata, the atma superseded, and the atma will be super happy, superseded. Will be happy and satisfied. So that's how I try to lead my life. Wherever I go, whatever I do, I think is in terms of service to Prabhupada. Because that's how you know what pleases Krishna. Like Prabhupada, he said, this is a quote from Prabhupada, like I said, don't blame me, he's being too heavy tonight. So this is a quote from Prabhupada. Prabhupada said the only question he asked his Guru Maharaj was, how can I serve you? And his Guru Maharaj said, you go to the Western world and preach in English. And for those who can't spell, that's English. And what did Prabhupada do? Prabhupada didn't say, it's so difficult. Like many of his godbrothers. They said it was very difficult. In the Western world. What are we going to do there? New York, London, whatever. But Prabhupada, just wanted to please the Guru Maharaj. And all evidence was against his success. All material evidence was completely against Prabhupada being successful. It's a fact. Some old gentleman, pure devotee, of course, coming from India with, a few rupees in his pocket, not having sufficient warm clothes, only knowing one person in the whole country, not even knowing the person, it's just like the person is a relative of one of Prabhupada's acquaintances in India. And that's it. And so much austerity Prabhupada had to undergo, like austerity of dealing with us, creatures, austerity of the weather, austerity of health issues, heart attacks. It's a story everybody knows. But Prabhupada took it as his life and soul. And Prabhupada wasn't thinking of anything else. So that's pure devotional service. And that's really what will satisfy the self, not the enjoying spirit or the renouncing spirit. So Lord Chaitanya, getting back to the story that we're reading, and we're actually finished reading that particular story, but anyway, Lord Chaitanya advised Kurma Brahman to stay at home and become a guru. Preach to people, just don't follow me everywhere. Don't be a guru premi or a guru groupie. Sometimes you got guru groupies. Guru groupies are people who follow the guru around. No, Gurudev, please let me touch your lotus feet. Oh, Gurudev, every time I see you, I faint. Anyway, so Prabhupada said you have to serve the spiritual master. He's not an object of enjoyment. But the real enjoyment comes from serving, because that's love. Love is not an emotion. Like, boy meets girl, and there's some, emotions, the endorphins or the hormones or estrogen and the other hormones. They all get together and pizzazz, That's not love. Or, let's say we see something beautiful in this world, apart from man-woman stuff. Let's say wow, I just looked outside. I saw the animals that I love. It's actually true. The squirrels. So if I say I love the squirrels, actually I do. I gave them some puris today. I left 2 puris out and they ran away with them. That's pretty cool. I go to the prasadam table and I look at, see if there's anything like rotis, chapatis, puris I can leave out, and then they just grab the whole thing and then run up the tree with them. It's pretty cool. So anyway, so the point being, I love a cute little squirrel. But love means actually something more than that. It's not just that something turns me on. It means service. That you really want to please the object of love. So Prabhupada had, or has, that attitude in relationship to his guru. And so Prabhupada's only question was, how can I serve you? Of course, maybe one day I'll have a disciple ask me that question. I pray. Anyway, so on that happy note, all right, let's get back to the story. So Karma Brahman was best situated in service by staying at home and making his family Krishna conscious, and then making others. Yari Degatari God Krishna Padesham, Arigai Guru Hoy Tore Desh. So that's the statement Lord Chaitanya made. Wherever you go, whoever you come in contact with, you become Guru and you give them Krishna Upadesh. Krishna Upadesh means instructions in relationship to Krishna. So that's service. Instead of following Lord Chaitanya. I know if I encountered Lord Chaitanya, I'd simply want to follow him. I would drop everything. Like if Lord Chaitanya came to Nugaloka, and let's say he came here to Nugaloka, and he knocked on my door, I would say, I'm going with you. I am going. And then Lord Chaitanya would say, you rascal, you stay there and render service. I said, well, I want to go with you. What sort of opportunity do I have in this lifetime to see Lord Chaitanya and be with Lord Chaitanya? And Lord Chaitanya would say, you nonsense. You nonsense. You want to enjoy yourself. But I want you to serve. And if you serve, you will not, like Lord Chaitanya said to Karma Brahman, that we will never be separated from me if you serve. But if you are not thinking of service, then you'll be separated from the Lord, even if you're in the same physical presence of the Lord. And we're going to hear about this in the story about Lord Chaitanya Kala Krishna Das's encounters with the Bhattaharis in South India. Because Kala Krishna Das, I'll just give you a little coming attraction in this particular chapter. Kala Krishna Das was accompanying Lord Chaitanya in on his tour of South India. And even though he was right with Lord Chaitanya, he became trapped by some gypsies. Not going to tell the rest of the story. And then Lord Chaitanya's servant, when he went to Vrindavan, Balabhadra, guess what? He tried to look, he wanted to go to look for Krishna in the Jamuna River, where was simply a fisherman holding his lantern out at night, even though he was with Krishna. So the whole point is seva, service in devotion. Savai pumsam bharo dharma yata bhakti virhoksache ahaitakiya pratyata yatma suprasidate. Okay. On that happy note, let us continue. Sorry for the brief, or not so brief, introduction. But I think it's a very important point. We should always be thinking of serving and asking, how can I serve? Not, I have this plan, Gurudev. Do you approve? And then Gurudev knows, you're going to do the damn thing anyway. Just like people come sometimes and they say, I'd like to introduce you to my fiancé, Gurudev. And do you approve? Do I have your blessings? And Gurudev, what can Gurudev say? He can't say, the guy's a jerk. because it'll just like blow you out of the water. So he just has to say, Ashirvad, blessings, my dear disciple. So, what can you do? You know, people. That's why people generally do something and they get blessings for it later, rather than asking if they should do something and they get blessings for it, or asking what they should do. Actually, it's the first class devotee would ask, well, first class would know what to do, but let's say in another context, the first class devotee would ask, what should I do? And the guru would say, do this. And the first class devotee would say, yes, sir. Second class devotee would say to the Guru Maharaj, I have this plan of doing it. Do I have your blessings? And Guru Maharaj would say yes or no, and the second class devotee would follow yes. Third class devotee would say, I just did this, Guru Dev. Do I have your blessings? And the Guru would say, yep. What can I do? This is what it means to be Guru. Of course, 10th class would go against the order of the Guru. But it's interesting. Let me give you an example of one particular story in that regard with Prabhupada. One devotee asked permission from Prabhupada to get divorced and remarried. And Prabhupada said, okay, you get my permission. And Prabhupada's servant was just like, what's going on? And he was just like thinking. But Prabhupada said something that he said previously was against. And so then the devotee went to Prabhupada, the servant went to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, why did you give him blessings to get divorced? And Prabhupada said he was going to do it anyway. So if he went against my order, it would be a disaster for his spiritual life. So, and Mother Ernala has a comment, but we do not accept. So, so the best. She just gave a comment. Asking for blessings. The best thing is asking, what do you want? Yes. That's right. The best thing is asking what you want. Second best is asking for blessings for what you want. And third best is asking for permission later. So, basically, that was just one person's opinion. Oh, that was it. That was a private message. Okay. So, sorry about that one. Shouldn't have addressed the private. I didn't see it was a private blessing. So, anyway. So, the best thing, like Prabhupada asked his guru, what do you want? And the guru, his guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, said, you go and preach. No less more. And Prabhupada did it, having full faith, understanding that within the guru's order is the success potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Very nice. Anyway, at least we should present our plans to the Guru. I mean, that's also a high platform. I do say that. Present our plans and ask for blessings and be willing to drop our plans if the Guru doesn't like it. But generally, it's, here's my plans, Gurudev. I'm going to do it. Give me your blessings. So, on that happy note, we're going to continue with our reading. Anyway, we're going to continue with our reading of the Sri Caitanya Caritamrta. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Okay. So we're reading from text 133 of the Caitanya Caritamrta. And this is the continuation, this is the end of the story of the Kurma Brahmana. Athaivahan kahilan kariya vistara e matajani ve prabhura sarvatra vyavahara. Thus I have described the Lord's behavior elaborately in the case of Kurma. In this way you will know Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's dealings throughout South India. E mata se ratri tahani rahila ratakali prabhu snana kariya chalila. Thus Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would remain at night in one place, and the next morning after bathing he would start again. Prabhura anuvraji kurmabahu durahela prabhu tanre yatnakari gari pathaila. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left, the Brahmana Kurma followed him a great distance, but eventually Lord Chaitanya took care to send him back. In other words, this Brahmana was still determined. It's amazing, even though Lord Chaitanya said, go back, go back, go back. Because that was out of love. It's not that he was doing something sinful. Of course, he wasn't obeying the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but sometimes devotees may transcend the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead out of love, and the Lord does not punish them for that. Yeah, you have the case of Gadadhar Pandit Goswami. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was leaving Jagannath Puri to go to Raj, that Gadadhar Pandit Goswami left Jagannath Puri to follow Lord Chaitanya, in spite of Lord Chaitanya's order to stay in Jagannath Puri, and then finally Lord Chaitanya just had to force him to go back. But Lord Chaitanya protected Gadadhar Pandit Goswami's vow of Kshetra Sannyas, that means to stay always in Jagannath Puri, and serve Tota Gopinath. So sometimes out of love certain things are transcended, but you really have to have pure love. And Kurma Brahman, he had pure love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he kept following the Lord. That's very interesting, that previous verse. I really like that. It shows love. The Brahman Kurma followed him a great distance, but eventually Lord Chaitanya took care to send him back. Vasudeva nama eka dvija mahashaya sarvange galita kushta tate kira maya. There was also a Brahmana named Vasudeva, who was a great person, but was suffering from leprosy. Indeed, his body was filled with living worms. Now, this is an amazing story about Vaishnava compassion. And I don't think any of us can imitate this story or imitate the actions of this particular individual. Anga haite yekida kasya padya uthanna se gidarake setana. Although suffering from leprosy, the Brahmana Vasudeva was enlightened. As soon as one worm fell from his body, he would pick it up and place it back again in the same location. Whew! That is compassion. That is complete selflessness. As I said, I don't advise imitating him. Ratrite sunilateno koshanirahagama tekibare aila pravate kumeravavana. Then one night, Vasudeva heard of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's arrival, and in the morning he came to see the Lord at the house of Kurma. Prabhura gamana kurma mukite shunina uite padiladuke murchita hana. When the leper Vasudeva came to Kurma's house to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was informed that the Lord had already left. The leper then fell to the ground, unconscious. Aneka prakara pilapa karite lagila Sekshanayasi Prabhu Tanre Alingila. When Vasudeva the leper Brahmin was lamenting due to not being able to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord immediately returned to that spot and embraced him. Rabhu Sparshe Dukkha Sanghe Kushta Dure Gela Ananda Sahitayanga Sundara Hahila. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu touched him, both the leprosy and his distress went to a distant place. Indeed, Vasudeva's body became very beautiful to his great happiness. Prabhura Kripa Deki Tandra Vismayahai Lamanaha Shlokapadi Payigdari Kariye Stavana. The Brahmana Vasudeva was astonished to behold the wonderful mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he began to recite a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam touching the Lord's lotus feet. So, in these particular instances, and I'm going to recite another instance in a second, we can see that the Lord was testing his devotees' tolerance, but more than that, he was testing his devotees' compassion. Because we have, in Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, devotees exhibiting extreme compassion. And this is manifest in the most exalted devotees of the Lord. You know, you have Vasudeva Dutt, who prayed to the Lord to let him, not the Lord, but let Vasudeva Dutt, accept all the karma of all the living entities so everyone could go back to Godhead. So he was willing to take everybody's sin so everybody could go back to God, not just his disciples' sins or followers' sins, but everybody's sins. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu called him compassion personified. And of course, you see this exhibited in Lord Nityananda's behavior, and you see this exhibited in His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada's behavior. So this is the measure of someone's spiritual advancement. Of course, there are Bhajananandis who are pure devotees of the Lord. Talking about Goshananandis and Prabhupada's standard for, let's say, measuring someone's advancement, apart from the point they have to chant 16 rounds, follow the four regular principles, engage in the sadhana process. We understand the basic foundational aspects of devotional service. But really, how much one was willing to sacrifice their own happiness. Now, I remember my godbrother, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, whose previous name was Ghanshyam. He was Ghanshyam when Prabhupada was on the planet. Later on, when he took sannyas, he got the name Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. So what he did was unique in the annals of the Krishna consciousness movement. He was assigned the duty of distributing Srila Prabhupada's books, especially whole sets, standing orders, in the Iron Curtain countries. That means the previous Soviet Union. So in order to do that, he was risking his life in many different ways. He had to hide out from the secret police, which at that time was called the KGB. And had they caught him, they would have imprisoned him, and I don't know what they would have done with him, but it would have been not a pretty sight. So in order to do that, he was basically living on the road. And on the road, I mean, to a large extent, on different trains and jumping from one train to another. Now, he was explaining to me one time that the KGB came on a train, or the guards or whatever it was, came on a train, and to escape them in the middle of the night, he had to jump off a moving train in the middle of the Soviet Union, in the middle of the winter. Can you imagine that? He had to jump off with the books, a moving train, and God knows, I guess he jumped on another train in Russia, and he didn't speak Russian. And he was just going from one university to another, approaching professors. And you may say, well, it's pretty easy to stay hidden in Russia. The people look very similar. No. Ghanshyam, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, was a black-body devotee. And in Russia, that is not so common. At least in those days, it wasn't so common. So, he would have stood out. I'm not going to use that expression, but he would have stood out very clearly if anyone looked. And so what happened is that, of course, he was distributing all these books, and Prabhupada was receiving news of his book distribution. And then when Prabhupada saw him face to face, Prabhupada did something that it wasn't that common for Prabhupada to do. Prabhupada embraced him tightly. Prabhupada was extremely pleased with him because of the trouble he had taken, the risk he had taken, the austerities he had undergone in order to please Prabhupada. Prabhupada even at that time said something like, anybody who distributes a book in the Russian countries, it's worth like 100 or 1,000 books distributed elsewhere. And there were many reasons for that. One reason was, of course, the difficulty was that one had to undergo to distribute books there. But another reason was that if one were to distribute a book, it was so rare to find Prabhupada's books there, and so many people wanted them, they would make copies of them, I guess you call them Xerox copies or whatever, or handwritten copies, whatever. And one book would become 100, one book would become 1,000. And the devotees would read them. And that's one of the reasons our Krishna consciousness movement started, apart from the fact that Prabhupada visited Russia, Moscow one time, and made one disciple when he visited Moscow. So apart from that. So you see, Prabhupada really considered the manifestation of compassion to be extremely important in the appreciation, Prabhupada's personal appreciation of a disciple. Very, very important. So in this case, we see the Brahman Vasudeva was appreciated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead for his compassion. And I have to say again that we should not imitate this Brahman Vasudeva, but we can follow in his footsteps by being dedicated to bringing people to Krishna consciousness. And as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, that it takes gallons of blood to bring someone to Krishna consciousness. When a devotee would leave, Prabhupada would cry. Prabhupada would be, extremely unhappy. And then he would send, I'm trying to remember some stories I just heard from Jaipataka Maharaj. Yeah, because we have this conference we have with Jaipataka Maharaj and other devotees about Vaishnavi Diksha Gurus every week. And Jaipataka Maharaj was describing how Prabhupada would say, where is he? Send. Oh, no, actually, it wasn't Jaipataka Maharaj, sorry. It was Ramaswar, who I saw in New York. And Ramaswar told me, he said when this devotee Madhavisa left the movement, Madhavisa has since passed from this world, left this movement, he was hiding out in some island in Hawaii somewhere. And Prabhupada said to Ramaswar, you find him and you give him a one-way ticket, bring him back to me. So Ramaswar went to Hawaii, went through the jungles of Hawaii, and he found him and he gave him the ticket, and Madhavisa came back to Prabhupada. So that's compassion. Compassion. Okay, let me turn up the sound. I'm speaking lower than I normally speak because I'm feeling very compassionate upon you living entities today. Okay, let me adjust the sound a little higher. That should be better. Okay, I'll try to speak louder. So anyway, so Prabhupada really appreciated this compassion of, I would say, he really appreciated it. What can I say? Like if you were to go to Prabhupada and say, Prabhupada, I am chanting such good rounds today. Prabhupada would say, okay, okay. And if you'd say, Prabhupada, I just brought 100 people to the movement, Prabhupada's eyes would open wide. And I personally had that experience with Prabhupada when I one time was talking to Prabhupada. And one devotee was showing Prabhupada the construction on a new temple. And Prabhupada was appreciating, of course. But then when I said to Prabhupada, the temple that I'm in charge of, this was in Caracas, Venezuela, we distributed 35,000 of your Bhagavad Gitas, hardbound Bhagavad Gitas, in 1 month. Prabhupada's eyes opened wide. And when I introduced Prabhupada to the devotee who had actually done 10,000 Bhagavad Gita, 10,000 of those Bhagavad Gitas, and then Prabhupada's eyes opened even wider, and he said, he has the mercy of Krishna. Prabhupada became overwhelmed just by hearing about the compassionate activities of his devotees. This microphone. Let me adjust the microphone a little bit so you have more volume. Oh, that's the wrong volume. Okay, so it should be loud enough now. Okay, so that's really the point here, and that's the mood or message we can get from the story of the interaction between Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu and Kurma Brahmana. I mean, not Kurma Brahmana, sorry, Vasudeva the leper. Gopal says loud enough. So, another verse. Kvaham duridra papiyan kva Krishna Shri Niketanaha Brahmabanduriti smaham bahubhyam pariram bitaha. He said, who am I, a sinful poor friend of a Brahmin, and who is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Full in 6 opulences, nonetheless, he has embraced me with his 2 arms. This verse was spoken by Sudama Brahman, Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 81st chapter, text 16, in connection with his meeting Lord Krishna. Bahu stuti kahe shunadayamaya jive gunanahi tomate haya more deki moragande polaya pamra Hena more sparsha to me swatantra hishvara. The Brahmana Vasudeva continued, O my merciful Lord, such mercy is not possible for ordinary living entities. Such mercy can be found only in you. Upon seeing me, even a sinful person goes away due to my bad bodily odor. Yet you have touched me, such is the independent behavior of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Kintu achilan baladamana ebe ahankaram hora janmi beasya. Being meek and humble, the Brahmana Vasudeva worried that he would become proud after being cured by the grace of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Prabhu kahe kabutamara naha vayabhimana nirantara kaha tumi Krishna Krishna nama. To protect the Brahmana, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu advised him to chant the Hare Krishna mantra incessantly. By doing so, he would never become unnecessarily proud. That is really an important point. That if you chant the mantra, whatever your mind, because the pride, it's manifests in the mind. Oh, I've been cured by Lord Caitanya. I'm so attractive now. I'm a Brahmin. I got special mercy. I'm one of Prabhupada's disciples. So whenever these thoughts come up of thinking yourself something special, God's gift to people kind, then what you should do is chant incessantly. Even the thoughts don't come up, you should chant incessantly. Trinadapi sunuchena toroi vasishnana amanina manadena kirtaniya siddhahari. So not only is it a prerequisite for you to be humble, to be able to chant constantly, but is the method by which you can become humble. That's interesting. You turn that whole verse around. If you chant incessantly, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. And actually I would see Prabhupada do that. under his breath, or very quietly, or in his mind even. Prabhupada was chanting, just fingering his beads. And then what did Lord Chaitanya advise him to do? Krishna Padeshikara Jivera Nishtara Achirate Krishna Toma Karivenangi Kara. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also advised Vasudeva to preach about Krishna and thus liberate living entities. As a result, Krishna would very soon accept him as his devotee. Whoops, let's finish this purport and then we can take questions. I promise we can take questions. Although Vasudeva Vipra was a leper and had suffered greatly, still after Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu cured him, he instructed him to preach Krishna consciousness. Indeed, the only return the Lord wanted was that Vasudeva preach the instructions of Krishna and liberate all human beings. That is the process of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Each and every member of the society was rescued from a very abominable condition, but now they're engaged in preaching the cult of Krishna consciousness. They are not only cured of the disease called materialism, but are also living a very happy life. Everyone accepts them as great devotees of Krishna, and their qualities are manifest in their very faces. If one wants to be recognized as a devotee by Krishna, he should take to preaching work following the advice of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then one will undoubtedly attain the lotus feet of Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Lord Krishna himself, without delay. That's a very heavy statement. If one wants to be recognized as a devotee by Krishna, he should, that's an imperative, take to preaching work following the advice of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then one will undoubtedly attain the lotus feet of Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Lord Krishna himself, without delay. So preaching work means we preach. Oh, it's too loud now. Can't please all the people all the time. So preaching work means we preach and assist the preaching. Those who assist the preaching also get the benefit of preaching. I'll try to talk lower. Now it's fine. Okay, so on that happy note, I promised yesterday, because I took up all the time of the poor devotees, so we went to 149 today, okay, that I would allow time for questions today instead of getting on my soapbox and just preaching to everybody. So, and I promised, Gopal has his hand up since yesterday. Whew, that must have been painful keeping your hand up for 24 hours, Gopal. Whew. I hope that's why you're wearing a brace on one of your hands. So, you have a question?
Yes, Gurudev. Yesterday you said that Mahabhagavat is not supposed to take disciples, that he has to come down to the to another platform to take disciples. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes,
can
that's
you
no problem.
So we also hear that someone should not accept a spiritual master who's not a Mahabhagavat. So can you explain the disparity there?
Yeah. So one has to be by identity a Mahabhagavat, but by action one can be act as a Madhyama Adhikari. So what is a Mahabhagavat? Oh my God. I am not declaring that I'm a Mahabhagavat. I'm a mini Bhagavat. I'm not even a Bhagavat. Even Ravana would be upset with me. So anyway, so apart from that point, apart from my display of humility to impress everybody, Prabhupada defined a Mahabhagavat Uttama Adhikari as one who never falls down and one who's always thinking of spreading the Krishna conscious movement. That's a functional definition. So this is really the point. If one actually functions as an Uttama Adhikari, then he won't preach. He'll just be absorbed as an internal relationship with Krishna. He's a Bhajananandi. So the Uttama Adhikari, the Mahabhagavat, by his identity, steps down, acts as a Madhyama, because the Madhyama has to distinguish. Madhyama distinguishes between innocent, the envious, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the devotees in his actions. So Mahabhagavat doesn't. Mahabhagavat, someone who's Mahabhagavad and functioning on the level of Mahabhagavad. There's functional Mahabhagavad and ontological Mahabhagavad. Sorry about those two words. One who is functioning on the level of Mahabhagavad sees everybody else as serving Krishna, and he's so humble, he's thinking, I'm not serving Krishna. And then it'll be something like Lord Rishabhadev, who walks around, everybody's making fun of him, and whatever. So, but a Mahabhagavad out of compassion steps down. And therefore we say about Prabhupada, the Prabhupada Paramahamsa Paravajakacharya, which is interesting. Paramahamsa Paravajakacharya. Paramahamsa basically means like topmost platform, topmost swan-like person, which is Mahabhagavad. So Paramahamsa, and then Paravajakacharya is considered to be a lower stage of sannyas. There's different stages of sannyas. Bahuda, Kutichak, Paravajakacharya, anyway, second stage is Madhukari, which is Kutichak, and then Paravajakacharya, and then finally Paramahamsa. So we say Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paravajakacharya, which is interesting in our pranam mantras, because he's acting as a Paravajakacharya. Paravajakacharya means one who travels and preaches Krishna consciousness, and a Paramahamsa is one who just absorbed. So anyway, so we should at least be Paramahamsas in the sense, or Uttamadhikaris in the sense of always thinking how to spread Krishna consciousness, because that pleases Prabhupada the most. Like, of course, there's that one story where Prabhupada was asked, I'd like the dust of your lotus feet, and Prabhupada said, it's a famous story, my feet are always moving, which means, you have to move and spread. You have to spread Krishna consciousness in a practical way. Everybody's different. Some people can do it amongst their associates and family members, and some people can only can do it amongst the wider group. But at least we can spread Krishna consciousness to someone. I mean, you can get on the internet. Everybody now has internet, and you have relatives, and you can expose them. You have friends, you can expose them to Krishna consciousness, or you can distribute prasadam. Open up a restaurant, or bake some goods, make some bagels, and give some bagels out to everybody. Bagel prasadam, or pizza prasadam, or, in my case, kasha prasadam. So who else has a question? I can't really distribute what I eat because very few people would want it. Okay. Said, how can you give me that rabbit food? I remember, here's a funny story. I have one god, but I can mention his name. It's Bhajranarayan Maharaj. And we used to have these in-person GBC meetings before COVID. And so what happened is that we'd all sit down and breakfast together, and they would be eating pancakes and all sorts of like stuff on top of the pancakes, butter and syrup and everything like that. And I'd bring in my nuts, and I'd sit with them, and I'd be eating my nuts. And Bhajranarayan Maharaj would look at me. He said, "Did you get attacked by the rabbits on the way?" This is rabbit food. He would always tease me that that the rabbits were going to attack me because I was eating nuts. Okay, so next question.
Joe has a question, Guru Maharaj.
Oh, okay.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Spiritual name now. She's not Joe anymore.
No. So it was from yesterday. At the beginning of the class, you talked about the Brahman Kurma and how once he met Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, he became a pure devotee.
Yeah.
And then I think you talked about him becoming confused and asking the question about, following him, and then getting the instruction. And I guess in my head, I have this image that once you're a pure devotee, you know, kind of ding, the light goes on and everything becomes clear and you know everything. And so just kind of understanding how one can be a pure devotee yet confused.
Okay. Okay, that is actually a very good question. So, how is it, let me try to rephrase the question. How is it that Kurma Brahman wanted to do something after being a pure devotee that wasn't in accordance with the Lord's desire? Is that the question you're asking?
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
a pure devotee is always supposed to act according to the Lord's desire. Well, the reason for that is that a pure devotee, when he's situated in the Lord's pastimes, does act according to the Lord's desire. But the Lord sometimes wants him to be apparently in Maya. You understand? Yoga Maya. It's Yoga Maya. Just like Arjuna. Let's take the Bhagavad Gita. This is a clearer example of this. Arjuna was bewildered, Bhagavad Gita, and he didn't want to follow Krishna's directions in the beginning, right? Okay, so he was bewildered. Let me remove my spotlight because had the spotlight on me the whole time, which is, I don't mind. But anyway, so Arjuna was bewildered, and he basically didn't want to follow. And Arjuna's a pure devotee. What's happening? Well, what's happening is that Krishna pulled his veil of Yogamaya over Arjuna so that Arjuna would be apparently in illusion, be attached to his family at the expense of following the Lord's directions, so the Bhagavad Gita could be spoken. So pure devotees are under the influence of Yogamaya, and being under the influence of Yogamaya, they may appear sometimes to act against the Lord's will, but actually the Lord wants them to act against his will, so that, this appears funny, so that a particular lesson can be learned or portrayed for others, to others. And you see this in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes where, I mean, in many cases this happened, where, let's see, one case where Damodar Pandit was advising Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and it was actually against etiquette, and Prabhupada said he shouldn't have done that. But that, he was a pure devotee, and he was doing that because the Lord wanted him to do that, and he was doing that out of love for the Lord. And the Lord's pastimes are like dramatic performances. In dramatic performances, the devotees take different roles. That's one point. Another point is that sometimes the devotee loves the Lord so much that that love really blinds him even to the Lord's order, which he ultimately follows, but it blinds him. And, there's so much love, like the gopis, for example. Here's another example. The gopis wanted to block Krishna from leaving Vrindavan, so they actually lay down on the path of Akrura's chariot. So, and then it's described when Akrura was driving out of Vrindavan, he had to zigzag to avoid running over the gopis. So why were the gopis trying to interfere with Krishna's leaving Vrindavan? And it was Krishna's desire to leave Vrindavan at that particular point. Well, first of all, their intense love, and secondly, Krishna wanted that, and he wanted a display of that intense love. He wanted them to act in such a way that it appeared that they were acting against his will. This is the mystery of the Lord's pastimes, that the devotees sometimes will act against the Lord's will because the Lord wants them, but ultimately they're acting in accordance with the Lord's will because the Lord wants On one level, okay, here's a better way to explain it. On one level, the Lord wants them to act against his will. On another level, the Lord functions on different levels. The Lord, it is the Lord's will. Is that clear? I mean, it's kind of confusing sometimes.
Maybe one day it will become clear to me. But
Yeah.
I understand what you're
I
saying.
mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of clear. I mean, it's like a dramatic performance that I may take. All right, let's say we have a stage performance, and during that performance, you're supposed to, let's say, you're supposed to disobey my instructions or something like that. Whatever. I'm supposed to ask you to do something, and you say no. And on one level, because it's if I'm into my role, I'll be upset with you. But on another level, that's your role in the performance. And I'm happy you did that properly. But you're into your character so much. I mean, if you've ever studied acting, there's this one school of acting called the Stanislavski, a method acting school, that you're into your role so much you actually become your role. You understand what I mean? You become the person you're portraying. And of course, that is a problem sometimes in Hollywood, where someone has a particular role in a movie and they become that person in the movie, and then they can't slip out of it after the movie. So they end up marrying the person that was opposite them in the movie and giving up their wife. Anyway, that's a phenomenon that does occur. So, but that's mundane. So so when one is within Krishna's pastimes, one has a particular role to play under the influence of Yogamaya. And these devotees are acting in terms of their roles perfectly.
Can I don't
Yeah.
quite understand. How then do you have independence if you're acting in a role?
Because they've chosen to do that. That's in accordance with with their nature. Krishna will never pick someone for a role that's not in accordance with their desire.
Okay.
Just like if I'm asked to play a part in a play, I have a choice to play a part or not, right?
Mm.
Like if someone says, you should play Ravana, I would say, Jai. I mean, I'd really love to play Ravana in a play. That would give me so much happiness. But if someone would say, you should play Sita, I would say, no.
Mm.
I don't want to play Sita. Oh, but I wouldn't want to play Ram either. I would feel very comfortable playing Ravana or Kumbhakarna, like that. Very, very comfortable. I mean, so that these devotees, it's part of their nature. They want to please the Lord. They're not forced. It's all voluntary.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, like Pran Govinda said, Jai and Vijay as Ravana and Kumbhakarna. Of course, I got to be careful. If I just said I would like to play the part of Ravana, then Krishna may take me up on that later and actually have me play that part. Next time Lord Ram appears, it may be me playing the part of Ravana. No, I mean in a play, Krishna, not in real life. I have to make that very clear to Krishna so he doesn't take it too seriously. But if Krishna wants, we can do. So I guess on that note, thank you for your questions. Time to end. We'll see everybody tomorrow evening, same